Today on Turbo Talks, Andri Frischknecht of SCOTT-SRAM MTB Racing for stage 1 of the Garmin Never Stop series. Welcome to a new special edition of the Turbo Talks podcast. My name is Rob Pauw and you are listening to the first of 4 podcasts to accompany you on your Garmin Never Stop series on Zwift. Because this December, Garmin is putting on the ultimate choose-your-own-adventure experience on the virtual routes less traveled. Whether it is riding or running or a shorter or longer course, the 4 stages have it all. Including that fresh new Garmin Tacx in-game kit that is waiting for you if you complete any event. Plus, if you complete the long-distance event of each stage, you are in it to win some cool Garmin and Tacx prizes. Each of the 4 long rides that you finish will give you an entry into the draw to win a Tacx Neo 2T, and each long run completed is an entry to win a Garmin Forerunner 945 tri-bundle. And to make it all even better, for every stage we have a special guest on this Turbo Talks podcast for your in-ride entertainment. So, time to jump on your Tacx and start turning those pedals over. Now, the chances are that if you are listening to this, you have already just started stage 1 of the Garmin Never Stop Tour. And if you are riding the shorter stage on Suki's Playground, your ride leader might actually be the guest on this podcast. Let's welcome him on the show and hear about his adventures on the bike. It is Andri Frischknecht of SCOTT-SRAM MTB Racing. Welcome, Andri. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Good. Thank you. Some snow today, this morning, for me.
I'd say snow is Switzerland, a perfect day for an indoor ride.
Yeah, looks like, yeah.
So you've got a ride on your Tacx Neo on the program?
Yeah, I think I will go to the rollers this afternoon. In the morning I go outside and do some cyclocross training, and then in the afternoon I go on my Tacx rollers, and just an easy spin. But for sure, I'm not going outside in the afternoon.
You already mentioned going out on your cyclocross bike because you're a professional mountain bike racer, but you also ride your cyclocross bike, your road bike, you ride dirt bikes in your spare time, and you still have the time to then jump on the rollers as well. How do you incorporate that into your training?
I always make a plan or check out how the weather is. So if it makes more sense to go on the rollers, because if it's really cold and raining outside, it's not really healthy to train outside, and you have not so many benefits of doing that. And then I like to go on the roller just to keep myself warm, and you can actually also do a more efficient workout, because when you have less time, you can ride more. For example, if you have only 1 hour of time, you can ride 1 hour on the rollers. But for riding outside, you need to get dressed. That's consuming a lot of time. And then as well, you cannot always pedal. Outside, you have to stop pedaling while sometimes you're descending or something. So it's much more efficient to train on the rollers, especially if you don't have so much time.
And who is your coach? Who's putting like those sessions on your program?
My coach is Martin Guyon. He's also the coach from the juniors Swiss national team. So most of the time when there is like Europeans or Worlds, or when the national team is there, he is also coming. So that's quite good, because we can plan the race and we can have a chat before how we prepare for it. And I'm working with him since a year now, and it has been really good so far.
All right, sounds good. Now, a lot of people might recognize your surname, actually, because they think Frischknecht might sound familiar. And yes, it does, because your father was Thomas Frischknecht, former mountain bike world champion in 1996, mountain bike marathon world champion twice, and also your grandfather was a cyclist as well. A cycling mad family that you grew up in.
Yeah, for sure. grew up in that family, and I don't know something else. So when I was a small kid, I was always at the races, playing in the mud, almost every weekend. And yeah, my dad for sure, he was uh, he was doing also cyclocross in the winter. I'm more focusing now on mountain bike, and my grandfather, he was only focusing on cyclocross because it was really big at that time. He also did some road, but the main thing back then was for sure was cyclocross.
So how do all those different disciplines in the family and what you've been riding as well when you were younger, how does that all benefit you now riding mountain bike?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of stuff, like when you don't know it, and someone tells you, then it's obvious, but you have to make these mistakes first. But I'm like used to everything, so I for me it's normal that a few things that for me came naturally. It's not like that I had to figure out a lot myself, because my grandfather had done it already, and my dad for sure. But at the end, it's all the same. You still have to turn the pedals.
Or as we say at Garmin, just never stop cycling.
Yeah, exactly.
So when did you know that? What was the moment that you realized? Okay, I just want to focus on mountain bike racing and become a professional in that.
When I was a junior, I still did both. I did mountain bike and cyclocross, also in the winter, also World Cups. And then I had to decide, because I finished my apprenticeship as a carpenter. So that was finished. And then I came into under 23. And, then it's getting more serious. It's a bigger step from juniors to under 23, and then I had to focus on something. And in Switzerland, you get support from the government, from the military, actually, to do sports that are Olympic. And cyclocross is not Olympic, so I focus more on mountain biking. And also the way how the season has to be planned is very difficult when you do two sports. It's possible, you can do it for sure, like Mathieu and some other guys also do both disciplines, but it's really hectic because you almost have no recovery between. You're always on the traveling all the time, so it's easier to focus on something, and also more, you can prepare better, because either you do something 100% or you don't do it. And for me, that was the decision to go for mountain bike.
And you mentioned that it was supported by the Swiss Federation because it's an Olympic sport as well. Was that for you growing up then a dream, going to the Olympics?
For sure, it still is. It's the biggest goal or achievement for an athlete, I would say, and that's also for me. It's the case. In Switzerland, if you can go to Olympics as a mountain biker, you also have the chance to win a medal. So it's quite a big achievement if you can go to Olympics as a Swiss rider. So working hard for it. I mean, Paris, it's just around the corner, and let's see what we can do there.
Yeah, it's only 2.5 years away. You mentioned the Olympics. Obviously, one of your teammates, a lot of experience, Nino Schurter, a competitor in that regard. So how was it for you making that prestigious SCOTT-SRAM MTB racing team? Because people maybe think like, oh, Frischknecht, he's probably naturally gifted, etc. But how hard was it for you to get to this stage?
It was like I was like growing slowly into my spot, I would say. At the beginning, when I was a kid, then my dad, he wanted me to work for everything, and that was actually really good. I was really thankful for that. He, for example, gave me shit bikes to compete against other guys. Like I had still aluminium frame and stuff, and the other guys already had carbon and like stuff like this. And as a kid, you also want the stuff that the other guys have. You know, it's really material, I would say, and I really had to work for it. You know, when I did a good race, I maybe get new handlebars, and then the next race I did good. I get new pedals, and so on and so on. So I get from time to time I get a better bike, and at the end I had also a good bike. Obviously now there is no difference between the teams. Really, everybody has good material. But you know, this learned me to work hard for it. And at that time, when I came into juniors, I was also, you know, I was winning World Cups, so I was one of the best junior riders. And then I got the spot in the team, and I'm still on there because you know, I earned my spot because you know, 2019 I was ninth at Worlds and third best Swiss rider, and you know, that's for a team that is based in Switzerland. You want to have the fastest Swiss riders as well, and yeah, I just like to be in the team. Is like a family for me, and I would say that the biggest difference from a pro team to like an amateur team is that you have all the support, not from the material side, because you can go in a shop and buy the same bike I have, but from the supporting side, like the physio, the mechanics. You don't have to book flights, you don't have to book hotel, you don't have to check where I can get dinner, and all that is planned. So you can focus on yourself, on the race, and really do stuff that are beneficial for high performance on race day.
Yeah, it sounded a bit like when you described when you were younger. That it's almost like people who are now riding on Swift see the comparison and think like, oh, when I get so many drop points, that I can actually upgrade my bike, etc. And you were like, if I had a good result, I might get like new handlebars or pedals. Well, is there been a time that you have been like really frustrated, maybe just with the situation, or maybe just angry at your dad that you thought like you maybe lost a race because you had lesser material than your competitors, or?
Yeah, that was also a few times the case because I had the frame that was really old, and the rear axle was not holding really strong into the frame. So I lost sometimes I lost my rear wheel, and that also happened in a few races, and for sure I lost. But you know, when you're that small, you're angry about it, but it actually means nothing. I mean, it's a kids race, and yeah, it's worth nothing. I mean, it's just experience, I would say.
Yeah, and obviously now you've got all that best equipment, and of the equipment that you have, you're also using obviously the Garmin and Tacx products. We already mentioned the Tacx Neo 2T. You've also got like the Garmin bike computer. I think you got the 830.
Yes.
So how do you use that in training, that 830?
You know, I have two because when I forget to charge one, I just take the other one. And then I have my, you know, my data fields. So I'm using all the same Garmin, the 830 for riding on the road, riding on rollers, mountain bike, everything. And then I switch from example, mountain biking to road or cyclocross. And then I have a specific data field for what is interesting for me. You know, on the road bike, for example, I wanted to see average speed and total distance and stuff like this. And this I don't want to see on the mountain bike. There is more related to wattage and heart rate and stuff like this. But it's like a presetting I did on my Garmin, so I have it really easy. I can switch what bike I ride So I directly have a specific data fields.
And in a mountain bike in a race, do you then still sometimes like have time to actually sneak peek at your Garmin at
No.
like what is your riding, or is it just at the end you just upload the data and then you look at it?
Yeah, it's if there is a really tactical race, then maybe when the speed slows down, then you can check, but most of the time you can't really check. And then there is marathon racing where I most of the time I need it to check because I have to see when I eat, and then I really have to check what the wattage, so I don't go too fast. When you have long climbs, you can check this because it's quite, when you have a 1 hour climb, you have a lot of time to check it. But in a cross country race, there is so much going on, you don't have time to do it.
Especially now in the short races, I imagine.
Yeah, there anyway, no time.
And one of the things that I actually saw you use recently as well, because you had your core body temperature displayed on your Garmin as well. How did you use that, and what was that for in training?
That's actually something I used to prepare for European Games because there it was really hot. So I'm trying to rise my body temperature to 38.5 degrees and then stay there. So it means I'm not checking the wattage, I'm not checking the heart rate. I just check the body temperature, that it stays at this level. And that helps to adapt for the heat. So the body makes adaptations to this heat, and it's then easier to perform at really humid and hot conditions.
So is that something that people who are riding now on Swift and maybe go up that little climb in Sugi's playground might experience as well? That they're getting just that heat and that core body temperature going up?
Yeah, for sure. It's especially on the rollers where you don't have wind, and if you don't have a fan, your body temperature will rise to a certain point, and then it's not going to rise anymore. And at this point, you will lose power. So if you have ever experienced that, going like for a ride 1 hour, and after 40 minutes you're just cooked and you cannot push anymore, that's exactly the point, where normally your body temperature is too high. You're full sweating. It's most of the time it has nothing to do with the carbohydrates, because 1 hour everybody can do without eating and stuff. So most of the time it's related to the body temperature. So you have too hot, and your system needs all the energy to cool the body and cannot transition it to create power on the pedals.
And how do you then adjust your fueling or hydration strategy to it? Because you mentioned you also check your Garmin in the longer races for when you need to fuel. Did you set alerts for it, or?
Yeah, for eating, I have alerts every 20 minutes when there is stages 3 or 4 hours. For sure, I'm doing this to just remind me. But sometimes it's not possible. You're in a downhill, and then you have the alarm, and you need to eat. You cannot take a hand off the handlebar, so you need to eat at the next possible spot. And that's quite, sometimes difficult to actually manage to eat after 20 minutes all the time. So you have to plan, or before you go into a downhill, you just have to take a quick bite from a bar or gel, and then you can eat that in the downhill and try to recover a bit.
Was that something that you really had to learn when you just came through in the pro ranks? To learn how to eat on the bike, and just to remind yourself, and to maybe sometimes even force yourself? Because I can imagine when it's really hot and humid, if you got those conditions, you don't really feel like you want to eat.
Yeah, that's for sure a really something really that is important, that you eat right away from the start. If you have 3 hours racing, you cannot just eat after 2 hours because you start to get hungry. Especially if it's a stage race, you also have to have the energy for the next day. So you need to be fueling all the time. Also, after 20 minutes, 7:20 in the morning, you have to eat the first bar or half of a bar, just to make sure you have enough energy, because at the end of the race, it gets more and more difficult to eat something. I tend to eat at the beginning more like hard stuff like bars, or like yeah, something that you really have to chew. And after, when in the afternoon, when the race normally finishes really hot and you're exhausted, so then I prefer to take gels, because it's easier to swallow, and really quick energy. And if you're like riding a finale in a race, you certainly don't have time to eat the bar, and because you have to stop breathing, and then you have to breathe through your nose and chew, and it's a bit a mess sometimes. So you just want to have something quick, and then yeah, you're ready to go.
Do you have a memory of a race where you kind of like forgot to eat and you found out the hard way? That you had like a big hunger knock that you bonked and then it was all over?
Um, yeah, no, in a race, not in a race, because there I always have a strategy. Then it's more, the energy levels that are going down because you went too fast at the start. But for sure, I had this a few times in training. When you're after the off season, when you start riding and you plan a loop you have done in the season, think, yeah, it's an easy loop, I can do it maybe 3 hours, and then after 2.5 hours you you start looking at all the papers next to the road, if there is something in the Snickers bar, or if there is maybe someone left something in the bottle, because you start get really hungry.
And then I can imagine it isn't a call, especially on those trails. You can't really just make a call like a road cyclist maybe can, like, oh, please come pick me up. And probably your dad would want you to find out the hard way anyway. If I
No,
can.
I would never do that. I would never call someone to pick me up, because it's my fault, and it's really embracing when you have a moment like this, and you just have to fight through it. But you can feel when you start getting hungry, then just you have to drop the pace and go slower, so you can still manage to make it home. Maybe not in training speed, but make it home.
That's probably one of the things that you've learned and that you found out as you went. Is there something that maybe your teammate, like a Nino Schurter, so experienced and a legend in the mountain bike scene, is there something specific that you learned from him, or did you already learn everything from your dad, what you needed to learn, you think?
No, for sure. I learned also a lot from Nino, because the sport has changed a bit. The distances were getting shorter compared to when my dad raced. So I for sure learned a lot from Nino. How to prepare for the race, especially recovery. My dad, he was not doing a lot of recovery and stretching and stuff. This he never did. Maybe massage he did, but Nino is really focusing also on recovery. So I learned a lot from him in this way, and also like mentally how to prepare for the race. He's a master of it. So even if you do it half that good like Nino, you still doing pretty good.
And looking back at last season, I think you've had some bad luck during the season. But what's the thing that you took away from the season? What did you learn most about the season?
To always keep trying, because I had some races where I had really good shape, and unfortunately I had mechanicals. For example, Nove Mesto, I broke my chain just 5 meters after the start, and then it was all over. And you know that when something happens today, it's not going to be a good result. But you can still try and leave everything out there and give it your all to get more experience. I had to pass like 60 riders, so you learn to pass some riders. That's maybe something positive for the next races. But mentally, you have to still like kind of wanted to give everything you have, not just say, okay, now it's over, I go home now, because that's also really shitty feeling, I would say, because you're traveling for sometimes a few days to go somewhere and then prepare for the race. It can take 1 or 2 weeks prior to only prepare for one race, and then in the race it's over after the start. So you want to drop out and go back home without showing anything, and that's, for me, it's like really a shitty feeling when you drive back in the car after the race and you have not tried everything you could.
And is that one of your strengths, you reckon, that mental strength compared to others?
I don't know, because I don't know what the others' mental strengths are. Maybe
fair
it is,
enough.
but no, my strength, I think, is more technical stuff, like wet routes and stuff like this, and downhills for sure. That are my strength, like spike skills, riding, descending. That's something I think I'm pretty good at.
But then in those muddy conditions, there is a chance, obviously, if a Mathieu van der Poel or Tom Pidcock is then on the starting line as well, they probably don't mind it either. How do you look at those guys like that, or those two, like coming into the mountain bike scene and just, immediately being at the top of the level and being so good? How is that being perceived within the field?
Mathieu and Tom Pidcock, they are really big talents, so they could probably do anything they want on the bike. They could also ride track. They could do anything, because they have the feeling for the bike that is really hard to explain this. But they can sit on a bike and exactly feel how the bike is reacting. If this is on the road, if this is on the mountain bike, if cyclocross, they have this feeling. That's the first thing. And then these guys, they have a huge engine, like really huge, like roadies, top of the roadies. And this combination makes them so fast. They can follow normally the front of a race with ease, and then still have the bike skills to pull it off.
But is it sometimes something that you can enjoy as well when you see those guys race? Or you're just looking at it like, those guys show up again?
No, for sure, it's good for the sport, because, it's like everybody is watching when Tom Pidcock is racing a World Cup, or Mathieu. All the fans from him, they are watching mountain bike as well. And it's good for the sport to get more attraction from other people. And, it's not like that they always win. They show up sometimes and they don't win. It's not like Mathieu had some really good races, but it's not like he's coming and just dominates everything. There is tracks he struggles with. And that's also quite good, because then the guys see, why did he not win? Maybe these mountain bikers are not so slow. So yeah. That's something you can compare then with other sports. But obviously the opposite way. Not many mountain bikers would be fast on the road, I think.
Yeah, if you look for yourself, we already talked about a bit like last season. If you look ahead for next season, what are your main goals for 2022?
My main goals are for sure to managed to get consistent top 10 results in the World Cup. And then the second one is to be fast in the short race. I was always lacking a bit of speed in these short races, so I had a bad starting position on the Sunday race. Short race is always Friday evening, a race 20 minutes, like a qualifying. And if you win there, you can start first on Sunday. So it's kind of a qualifying race. And if you do good there, you already know you're in good shape and you have a good starting position. So I have to work on this. I want to get better in the short race, and that's my goal.
And is there a certain plan now in winter, now during the off season, to achieve those goals? How do you work towards them?
Yeah, of course. We will focus more on like short intervals. So that means 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, with really short breaks. So you try to do a 30-second sprint, then you have 30-second break, 30-second sprint, 30-second break, like 10 times, and then do it again and again, just to simulate actually a short race, or the feeling from not being recovered and still having to sprint and go again and go again and go again. That's what the short race is about, and maintaining a really high speed during the whole race.
So it sounds like you've got a tough and a hard winter ahead of you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, that's, it's not like that I'm doing this every day. You still have to prepare first the base. So that means a lot of hours, base miles, to get the bigger engine, train a big volume. And then after that, coming down before the cross-country race is coming down with the volume and starting to get into those intervals. And then, like fine-tune the engine you created over the winter. It's a bit like this, that, just before the race, you give it a little bit more push than with these shorter intervals. For sure, I'm doing it now from the beginning, but not that intense that I will be doing in like February, March, I would say.
And then eventually, what is the dream in mountain biking?
You think my dream?
Yeah.
My dream for sure is to go to Olympics and do it for a few more years, so I can reach my goals.
All right, awesome. We're going to wrap it up here. I want to thank you already for your time. And in the meantime, for people who are just still riding around Suki's Playground or the Dust in the Wind course, I hope you enjoyed this. And in case you haven't finished the stage yet, you know what to do. Just never stop cycling. The Garmin Never Stop series is on from 3 till 19 December. And you've got 4 days to find the time to complete each stage, with the short ride available every 2 hours on Zwift. And the long ride is available to ride every 6 hours on Zwift. And remember, each completed long stage is an entry into the draw for a great prize. So either to win that Tacx Neo 2T, the one that Andri has as well, and if you complete a long ride, or it is the Garmin Forerunner 945 Tri Bundle if you complete a long run. With that much snow and winter, maybe you've got some time to jump on some more rides than the one that you're leading?
Yeah, for sure. I hope everybody can join me on the 3rd of December for my ride, and good luck with winning the Garmin products. See you on Zwift at least.
All right, perfect. Thanks again for joining us, Andri. Wish you all the best for next season. Already also a happy holiday season that's coming up in a few weeks' time, and then on towards those big goals. And we love to see you in those top 10s in the World Cups in 2022.
Thanks a lot. Stay safe.
All right, and thank you all for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this chat with Andri, make sure you look for the Turbo Talks podcast on your favorite podcast channel and just listen back to one of the many other episodes that we already had with cycling greats like Andri's teammate Nino Schurter, or maybe even Anna van der Breggen, Tom Dumoulin, or Alberto Contador, and many, many more. As always, make sure you tell a friend about the Turbo Talks podcast and subscribe, share, like, and leave a rating and a review on iTunes. This was Rob Bouw with Andri Frischknecht of SCOTT-SRAM MTB Racing for the first stage of the Garmin Never Stop series. Stay tuned for the next Turbo Talks.